You're listening to the Be So Good podcast with Colin Pearce. Colin says you are 10 times better than you think. So why not be so good that they simply can't ignore you? Here's your host, Colin Pearce.
I first met Jerry Crockford when I was invited to a board meeting with the executives of a particular company where he was consulting, and I was going to consult and make some videos. So I stepped into the room, and the chap that introduced me said, "Oh, you better be careful. These guys are pretty touchy about strangers." So as I walked in, the 9-foot-tall managing director was hoeing into a great big cheesecake, and he said, "Cole, you're just in time. I saved you half of it." The general manager looked over and said, "You're taller than me, so I don't like you already, but I've got more hair." And I looked over into the corner, and there was one Jerry Humongous Dog Body Crockford with a minty wrapper down his spectacles and saying, "Oh, I can't quite see you, but I've heard about you." That was my introduction to him and that consulting group. And it was hilarious for the next 3 or 4 years as I flew backwards and forwards to meet them in Brisbane. Jerry left that business and became what did you become, Jerry? Let's ask him.
I guess you'd call it an agency now, but back then I started writing copy. We had, you wouldn't remember this, but back then we had newspapers.
I do.
And I think Yellow Pages.
I do.
And I was writing ads for those. So that was 26 years ago. Be careful, we're starting to sound like a couple of old guys now. But
yeah, well, half the people on this who are members weren't born then, so we do sound like old guys.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just reflected the day we're doing work with a client now who was my probably second client, 26 years that relationship, and back then we were always using tablets. It's just back then it was sort of slate tablets, and then we've progressed to digital tablets because there wasn't even an internet then. But it is interesting, and we'll probably talk about this, is that while the technology's changed, we're still dealing with human beings who need to buy things.
Yes, indeed. What did you do with the newspaper and Yellow Pages people?
Doing ads, writing ads and brochures and direct mail. And it's interesting, that's where we got into this great cornerstone of, I think it's a fantastic cornerstone of marketing, is what I call the rule of 7. And that is, if you've got a list of people or that you think you could do business with, then you should connect with them or talk with them or do something with them 7 times over an 18-month period.
We're going to come to that a little bit later. Stay with the Yellow Pages thing for a moment.
Well, I guess we can talk about Yellow Pages a bit because it still applies to the internet. Is the same principle in a way. And that is, people go through a journey when they buy anything. We call it the buyer's journey. And there's 3 stages to it. So there's 3 stages to it. There's awareness, when they're first aware they've got a problem or a dream. That's it. And then my TV, I wouldn't mind getting a bigger car, or my TV's got a dark brown, expensive burning smell coming out of the back of it and looks like I need a new one.
Or the backyard's a mess and the wife won't clean it up for me.
That's it. Right. So that's awareness. The next stage is moving down, because we're coming down the funnel, is what we call consideration. Now I'm going to consider my options. Do I want a SUV or a sedan or a whatever? Do I want to get somebody in to mow the place? Do I want to, and so it goes, considering their options. And the last one is decision, which is who's going to get my money. So it's awareness, consideration, decision. And this is really important for any marketer. Now, that cycle can happen real fast for sometimes. Like I needed a new cord the other week, USB cord thing. I got onto this mob that sells them. I looked at 2 places and I was just looking at their ratings. Oh yeah, they'll deliver if I spend my money with them, and away I went. So I was aware of a problem. I went straight to decision pretty quickly, right? But if you're going through a significant, you might be buying a new laptop or you might be buying a new whatever, then you're going to consider your options. So there's this little bit of a buyer's journey. So where the Yellow Pages comes in, and to a degree, some things on the internet, not all, is they're well down the buyer's journey by the time they look in a directory like that. It's not like, oh, let me flick through the Yellow Pages to decide whether I want to get my back lawn sorted out, right? I know I want more. So here's a classic example. I remember one particular ad I saw was a gentleman selling shower screens. Mm-hmm. And the headline of his ad was, Shower screens. All right. Now, back then, the Yellow Pages ad was about $10,000 for the size of ad he had. He'd taken up 30% of his ad, so he spent $3,000 on a headline saying shower screens when he was in the directory in the section for shower screens. So he's just spent $3,000 telling me something I already know. Right? So
you're too much. Yes, I've seen it thousands of times.
that's right. So if I'm looking in a directory shower, and this applies on the internet, if I've Googled and I'm well down the buyer's journey now and I'm looking specifically for what I want, then maybe the top of the page shouldn't be talking about that. It should be talking about a benefit of the why you should buy the shower screen from me.
Got it.
Right? You see what I'm talking about there?
Yes, I do.
So yeah, we could spend several hours on this. How long is this program? 20 minutes? Talking about the buyer's journey, because it affects everything you do with all your marketing. Every page of your website, every email that you send out, everything, you've got to think, where does this fit in the buyer's journey? So here's an example. Do some work for a dentist, and he helps people with teeth straightening for a better smile. But at the awareness stage, the content that we're going to have on there is all about straightening teeth and a beautiful smile and smiling with confidence and so forth. Then we're going to have, once they become involved on the website, then we'll offer them some content that talks about comparing different ways of getting that done, because there are different options out there. There's wires and braces. There's different, ready-made systems. So where that works is, if they come to the website the first time, we'll show them the broad stuff. But if that same person comes back later on, we'll then show them prices, because if they've come back again, they've read this first stuff at the awareness stage about the different ways of getting their teeth fixed. When they come back, well, they're now moving down towards decision stage. So let's talk about pricing. So this awareness consideration decision is really important when you think about everything you're presenting. Where are they in the buyer's journey, and make sure the content that you're giving them matches what they're looking for.
Awareness,
consideration
and decision. You've got to catch them
Yep.
somewhere in there. And the closer they are to decision, the less preamble you need to make, because they come in and say, "G'day, mate, I want to buy they've searched the internet and they say, I want to buy a big rainwater tank, 10,000 litres, and I want it installed at the back, and I want a pipe, and I want an outlet to go out to the main street."
That's right. So decision stage, then their questions are different. The questions there are what you've just said, and when can it be delivered? Decision stage is when they need to see testimonials from other satisfied customers to know that you've got the capacity to do this. Decision stage is pricing options, is paying it off over time options if you have those available. Mm-hmm. Whereas early in the buyer's journey, not so important. And look, let me tell you a little tale about my good self. Some time ago, I realized that I was becoming bigger than enormous. And so I got myself a bicycle and started riding a bike to work every day. Okay. And it's interesting. I was just looking now, I've clocked up 46,000 kilometers on it.
Good heavens.
I know.
We need to point out you're working from home now for obvious reasons, but you were cycling into the city of Brisbane.
Yes, an hour and 15 in at home every day. So here's the thing. I was getting low back pain while I was riding the bike.
Uh-huh.
So I was problem aware, but I was not yet solution aware. And there'll be many people watching this little podcast who will have a business that offers a complex product or service where their potential customers sometimes are problem aware, but not yet solution aware. Now, what I mean by that was I was Googling low back pain on a bike. Why is my bike hurting on my bike? So, and then as I researched in the awareness stage, I then got to, saddle height, handlebar width, crank length. That's interesting. I didn't know all that was tied in with back. Bike fit service. What on earth is that? So the solution was a physiotherapist here in Brisbane where you can go to, sit on your bike, and he watches you pedal with his little camera, and he says, well, your back's at 12 degrees, that should be at 15, and we're going to move the saddle here, and we're going to alter those handlebars, and then you need to do this, and it fit the bike to me, and I was comfortable. But do you see the important part of the message there? I was problem aware. I knew my back hurt, yes, but I was not at that stage Googling for bike fit service because I didn't know it existed.
Right.
Okay. So with your website, with your content, you've got to be aware of having content for people who are just aware of the problem, then they're considering their options, and finally, I'm going to get this done. So whatever you're selling, you need to think about that really carefully, of the structure of your content, so you get people at all those levels and bring them in towards a point where you can talk to them.
Had somebody set that bloke up to advertise or to put that in his content, or did he just stumble across it? Or did you just stumble across it despite him?
I was reading a blog on his website about satellites. Because like in my
Haddle site.
Yeah, my Haddle site. Sorry, I was balking tackles and getting things fracked to bunt. So that's where he got me. But you see, earlier in the journey, I wasn't even looking at saddle height. I was just thinking, why is my back hurting on a bike?
Okay.
So that's why where we're going with this in then is you need to plan your content to think about your buyers out there. And see, where most websites miss out, look at this. I'm looking at reviewing a website now. One of the things that people do is they get us to review their website, right? And one of the things that we see over and over and over again is a website is set up well for people who are at the decision-making process, which is inquire now. That's their call to action. That's their offer. Fill out a form and we'll get back to you. But what about all those other people who don't want to have a salesperson crawling all over them just yet? There's nothing on the website to engage them. There's nothing on the website to get them to fill out and download some piece of information or what have you earlier in the buyer's journey.
Rightio. I should say all these wonderful pieces of advice supplied by you yourself come from this amazing Brisbane firm with an international following, and it's called...
Crockford Carlisle.
Crockford Carlisle. How do you spell Carlisle? Carlizzle?
Yeah. There is no Carlisle. It was just a name I picked out of the white pages because it worked well with Crockford. But there you go. That's an interesting exercise about getting the brand of your business right. When we started all those years ago, we called the business Winning Business because that's what we're about. We're helping you to win business.
I thought that was a great name, and I'm glad I came up with it.
Yeah, there you go. But the problem was I realized we were having difficulty attracting. We were offering services for the companies that we could help are business owners who are have a growth mindset and usually have a reasonably substantial business and want to grow beyond that. And I realized that they weren't going to call someone called Winning Business. Huh. It's interesting with business names, and here's a whole nother topic, another rant for another day probably, but the more a business name tries to describe what you do, it generally makes you look smaller. Less is more. Winning Business, I really am important. Whereas when we changed it to Crockford Carlisle, that brought with it authority. We weren't having to say, we really are clever. It stopped people calling me saying, do you do things on barter card? They all disappeared. And the client profile changed just from changing the name.
It's interesting. Back at the end of the 1990s, there was a bit of a rave going on, or a rage going on, about name your business to attract traffic. And traffic was a big thing. So people were creating names like yourfreedomnow.com and behappyathome.com. And you can make a fortune using this technique on the internet.com. And well, they were supposed to be benefit-rich statements, which you and I liked very much, but we weren't so keen on the website names. They were everywhere.
Yeah, and that was an effort to try and game the system with Google. Like Brisbane, people might call it, Brisbane Home Constructions, hoping that they would find people Googling Brisbane Home Constructions. But Google's a lot smarter than that now. The algorithm is really amazing. I mean, if you search, do people have football in South Australia at all? I don't know. But
How amusing. You've stolen the grand final of football, not throwy, not bouncy and bangy heady, but football. Australian rules football. We've got over that now. Can we move on?
Yeah. So, but if you were to, if you just put Melbourne Storm into Google on Thursday, it will come up with the matches times that are coming up this weekend. On Monday or Tuesday, if you put Melbourne Storm into Google, it'll come up with last weekend's scores. Now, you only put the same 2 words in, Melbourne Storm, but Google's real smart now. Look, what is the intent of this person? All right. If you go weather in Sydney, it'll give you today's weather.
Yeah.
If you go weather in Sydney in February, it'll come up with the last year's weather, and it'll also come up with some ads for travel because it figures you want to go to Sydney. Right. And yet it's very, very smart. So this whole idea of trying to game the system by calling your business, Brisbane Home Builders, it's not going to do it. It's up to the content on your website. The URL, the address is not going to make any difference.
Okay, let's go to a quick answer to this question. I think is, can ordinary folk do get some quick results by cleverly manipulating themselves into the internet with a good Twitter handle or a good Facebook page? Can ordinary folk get their game going with that sort of approach?
Yes, I guess. So there are a million success stories of people who have done that. Got to have the right product at the right time with the right. That's a really big question.
What's with the supercilious tone and grin? Have I asked the wrong question?
Yeah, no, didn't mean to be supercilious. I was more trying to let you down gently to say, yes, if you happen to stumble upon, if you come up tomorrow with some fantastic something or other the world wants, then yes, you can get a quick result. Other than that, and most of us don't have that, if you have just a normal product or service, like, a builder or a lawn mowing service or whatever, then it's down to having good content there about the questions. It always comes back to, am I answering the questions that my potential customers are searching for on Google? What's keeping them awake at night at the awareness stage, the consideration stage, and the decision stage? And do I have content that answers those questions?
Yes. We were talking to some friends overseas, you and I, on a conference call, and they've just released a product and they wanted to get it out there. They wanted to get it out there before Christmas. And while this particular crisis on it was related to health matters and staying at home and so on, and they asked the question, how can you help us? And I sucked all the oxygen out. What do you call it? Suck the tiles off the ceiling.
Ceiling, yeah.
When you said, that's a big ask. It doesn't work like that. It's a long-term journey. Talk more about that.
Well,
because
okay,
here we are. We've got listeners who say, well, I'd like to have this happen for me. I'd like to be as clever as Jerry, but it's not going to happen between now and next Tuesday, is it? Promoting on the internet, changing your website, changing your SEO.
Yeah, that's right. That all takes time. That's right. So in their particular case, they have some insights to help people to be able to work at home well. Okay, so then begins the journey. What are people searching for who have to work at home? They could be searching about, how do I set up my desk? What are the best desk types? Do I need a stand-up desk? Do I need, and so forth, if that's what people are searching for. If it's employer wanting to know how to motivate their team and keep the team culture right while people are working at home, then they're going to be searching for that kind of information. So it takes a little time to get that content created. And then when you've got to think, well, I've attracted them to the website, I've then got to engage them with something and then convert them. So it doesn't usually happen overnight. Now, the shortcut way to test this, if you have an idea, is to have a landing page and maybe run some Google ads and see what you get.
And the Google ad might say, I help you work at home.
Correct. But then
Let me help you work at home happily and safely.
That's right. So then you test some angles. You might have 3 different ads. One that says working at home and coping with a small family, young family. The other one could be, if that's what they provide solutions to, working at home and maintaining disciplined and motivated. And ad number 3 could be about working from home and what you need in your toolkit of electronic software and wizardry to get the job done. And you could run those ads and see which one of those gets the most response and go from there.
Got to tell you, the more I talk to you over the years and the more I listen, the more I realise that this really is a bit of a dark art and needs somebody who lives and breathes and cogitates on it all day, every day, like you. Would I be right?
Yeah, it is. It's the hard part is stepping out of your own fish tank. You got to ask. I remember years ago talking to a guy that sells air conditioning, and he had on his website commercial air conditioning and residential air conditioning. He was trying to rank and be found on Google for residential air conditioning. And I said, yeah, I can't imagine a bunch of people at a barbecue saying, I am going to see if I can get some air conditioning for my residence this summer. They're going to say, I'm going to get an air conditioner at home, mate. Right? So we had a look, and sure enough, there were many more people searching for home air conditioner. And then when you drill down, they're searching for air conditioner for baby's nursery, air conditioner for bedroom. So we ended up with lots of different pages on his website, each one of those addressing those situations. Because here's the thing, if you get one thing from today's conversation, Google does not look for websites, it looks for web pages. Right? So if you were to search, air conditioner for baby's room, it won't take you to the homepage of a website. It'll take you to specific pages that talk about the best air conditioner for a baby's room in summer.
So you got an air conditioner guy, and he says, when can you get me some customers or some leads? Go on. Answer that, Mr. Smarty Pants, without being supercilious.
You begin with research and thinking and walking in potential customers' shoes. Then you divide it up into personas. Who are we targeting? There's Mr. and Mrs. Fudpucker who live in the suburbs who might want to kill off their house. Then there might be the commercial business. And who is that? Is that the landlord who's got a block of flats, office block, or is it the body corporate, or is it a real estate agent who is responsible for maintaining air conditioners, or is it tenants? Each one of those will have a different thing that they're searching for. Sorry, I've gone like a frog in a sock again.
No, frog in a sock's fine. Except at this point, the little black duck like me goes, it's too hard. Please, Mr. Bus Driver, open the door. I need, because there's so much in there. You've done this to me before when I've asked you for advice for my own little self, and you've gone, here's a sucker. I'll make it so hard, he'll have to call me.
So let's try and simplify it. Step one. Get a clear understanding of who you want to sell your stuff to.
Right, and that's what they call the avatar these days, isn't it?
Avatar or a persona. Yep.
Have you got an avatar or a persona for Crockford Carlisle? Carlisle in Brisbane.
In Brisbane, I do. In fact, I have them right there on our homepage. It says, we help business owners and sales managers who are serious about growth but are frustrated that they've spent time, money and effort on their website and it still doesn't produce the traffic and qualified leads that they'd hoped for. So that's the avatar of the person that we help best.
What is that bloke or blokeess's name? You call that person by name in your office, don't you?
Yeah, it's Barry Business Owner.
And so when one of the team produces a graphic or a bit of copy, you say, I'll bet, I don't think this is up Barry Business Owner's alley. Or, yes, right. Barry Business Owner will love this.
Correct. And let's just unpack this a little bit more, because it was interesting. I think it's something you and I talked about a while back with COVID, right? And we were talking about when that first hit. And I was looking at marketing because we've been helping a lot of businesses who need to switch their thinking and go in a different journey to be able to get around that. And what we said, like our avatar is, I'll just go back again. We help business owners and sales managers who are serious about growth, but are frustrated that they spent time, money and effort on their website, yet it still doesn't produce the traffic and qualified leads they hope for. But if we had a promotion, which we did, about what to do when the COVID first arrived, and this is old now, that was a lifetime ago, 4 or 5 months ago now. But what we realized is the language we were using was, if your business is struggling, we can help, which is true, except we realized that wasn't, in our case, the avatar of the person who was likely to respond. It was the person we were after was, is as a mental mindset of, I'm on a growth path. This pandemic is a stumbling block that's in my way. How do I get past it and keep on growing? Which is a different mindset from the person that says, oh dear, I'm going to climb under a rock and not do anything. And it's interesting is that we found some businesses, and this happened back when the global financial crisis happened, the first thing they cut was their marketing and pull down and hunker down. And there's others who rang us up and said, you know what, there's probably an opportunity in this here somewhere, because all my competitors are hunkering down and sitting at home sucking their thumb. What can I do to increase my market share, keep things rolling along, and be in a really strong position when the economy takes off? And I'll tell you a little tale is that I've got a client who did just that. And he was saying to me the other day, he sells equipment to trades who do installations of electrical equipment. And he said to me the other day, he said, they keep coming in here, leaning over the counter, looking for sympathy, saying, oh, I've only got one job on this week, or one job. How are you going? And he said, I feel like screaming and saying, well, I'm going really well, but then I'm spending $10,000 a month on advertising, marketing. And if you did too, you wouldn't be sucking your thumb. You'd be busy like we are and profitable. So, but back to our avatar, he's the kind of client I wanted to work with. He's not going to be attracted to a message about hunkering down in these hard times. He's going to be attracted to a message of, here's how you get a competitive advantage. So, because it's always easier to fly the direction the ducks are flying in than try to get them to come over your way. That's a basic of marketing. It's much easier to align yourself with the market and bring them gently into your roost rather than having to switch them in a completely different direction. So just to recap, so understand your avatar, think about what's keeping them awake at night, what they're thinking about at the awareness stage, consideration, decision stage, then have the content on your site that will bring them in. Another time, then we need to talk about what to do to engage them, because otherwise you'll get, this is great, I've got 1,000 visitors on my website this month. So what? See, you then got to go, well, what are we going to do with those 1,000? How many, if we could get 2% of those would be great, 2 or 3% of those to engage somehow. Now, I don't mean buy something just yet, because they might not be ready yet, but to engage somehow, fill out a form for some information or some resource or some step towards getting their problem solved. So it's taking online. There's an old principle in sales. It goes free product for a prospect, then product for a customer. So that's free product for prospect, product for customer. So I knew someone a little while back who was an executive person who wanted to shift in his career, and he went to speak to one of those people who help with career management, whatever, creating your resume and planning your career and all that sort of stuff. They said, look, mate, tell you what we do, for free, you can have 20 minutes on the phone with one of our consultants, get a really good heads up of what you want to achieve. And look, it won't be a sales pitch. We won't be wasting your time. You'll walk away from that 20 minutes with some good insights and so on. So he did that. So there's your free product. Then there was a product prospect. At the end of that, they said, look, if you want to, we run a 2-hour seminar. You'll be in a group of like-minded people of similar age to you and similar stage in careers, and we'll do a presentation, and that'll cost you $500, right? So they didn't consider him to be a customer yet. He was still a prospect, but they were now selling him a product. So he shelled out his $500, went along to that workshop. He got good value from it, and at the end of that workshop, they gave the pitch for their $3,500 product, which was a product for their customers. So it was free product, a product for prospect, and then a finally engagement for the full dollars. So it's a matter, if you can, of taking that online. Give value, give away free, have people read stuff that's useful for them, get them to download stuff that's useful. Don't hold back. Give them. So when people come and read blogs on our website, they will get solutions. They'll read, I can do that, I can do that. It's not, come along, I'll tell you this later. It's all there, right? Yeah. And then there's stuff that you can engage with to get more information, and then you can decide to take the next step. But that's the key, is you don't want to just expect people to get out of bed, find your website. If they do this, it would be great if they got out of bed, found your website and spent their money and bought it. That's great when that happens, but let me tell you, they will have been through that buyer's journey. At some point, they will have been through awareness, consideration, decision. Now, it could have been the weeks before they came to your website, or the months, or in some things, but it could have been the years, or it might be in the last 10 minutes, but people will go through that journey, and you need to have your content set up accordingly.
Beautiful. That's a great lead into my close, which is to say everything I talk about is available everywhere on the internet. Every Dick, Tom and Harry calls him or herself the world's #1 sales trainer or the #1 customer consultant specialist. Well, that's a load of baloney. They're the only ones who say it, but their stuff is out there and it's free. And a lot of the things I say, I'm not the world's #1 at anything, but I have a way of collating all the free stuff into a package, into a blueprint, into a stream. And in our membership, there are lots and lots of things for free, like this great podcast featuring the one and only Jerry Crockford. And there are lots of things, videos, and there are bits of pieces of information. But when you see enough and you realize that there is more there, you become a member and you get all that stuff collated down a stream so that it might be free everywhere else, but I save you the trouble of looking. I save you the trouble of going hunting and searching and scratching and pecking. It's all there in the Colin Pearce Academy website.
So there's value. Yes, you're actually, which is the first time I've heard, I don't know how long, I've probably known you, 30 years now. So the first time in 30 years I've heard you being humble. But because the stuff that you say is available elsewhere, I don't agree with that. There are many things that I hear from you when I talk on the phone about sales and how people tick and what to do to communicate well and how to be able to stand up in front of a room and talk confidently, that I don't believe people do get elsewhere. But even if they did, there's real value in what you just said. You said you bring it together in a stream, because if people are busy, if you can save people time and give them what they need, which you do, in a structured manner to get them from here being a gibbering blah, 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 to here being confident, being able to tell stories, being able to have their staff listen, be able to communicate at a boardroom, be able to get their message out, then doing that the way you do, there's real value in that.
Good on you.
There you go.
Okay, will you talk to us again? Because I would like to talk to you about that rule of 7, which I curtailed. Good copy in the rule of 7. Another time we'll talk about how you manage your team, your remote team.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Jerry Crockford. Jerry Crockford of Crockford Carlisle, right there in Brisbane. If you look up c-c.com.au. Thank you. Good afternoon, as I said.
You've been listening to Be So Good with Colin Pearce. Please share the link with someone who needs to be reminded that they are 10 times better than they think. For more episodes, check out the playlist at colinpearce.com/podcast. And don't forget to drop a review in iTunes. It really does make a difference.